Welcome to Coming Home, Survive and Thrive in Homeschooling. Why to teach the classics? We enjoyed an exhibition of the world of ancient Greeks at the Auckland War Memorial Museum. The exhibits are on tour from the British Museum. New Zealand doesn't see these types of exhibitions often. We only have a small selection of historical pieces and artwork in our country. We don't have the fabulous British Museum, National Gallery, or the West End. So when a collection or a show comes to New Zealand, you go. We had the privilege of our own tour guide, the classics professor from our youngest daughter's time at university. Oh my, the value a tour guide brings to an experience. It's a concentrated version of a Greek classic paper delivered in an hour and a half. It helps to have a rudimentary knowledge like I do, but for those like my daughter, it was a chance to see and experience the wonder of what she'd learned. If you're in Auckland and haven't seen the exhibition yet, do go. And for everyone else, take opportunities when they come to you. I doubt this display will be back in my city in my lifetime. In the US, classics are being removed from university curriculum due to the association with Western civilization, understood to be white, and replaced with more modern progressive subjects, undermining anything to do with Western civilization. Never mind the irony of universities existing because of Western civilization and languages recorded and written down. The undermining of our culture and promotion of anti-Western sentiment is only doable because they're in a Western civilization. I doubt whether this would happen in other modern, non-Western countries. It has been said to be inevitable it would come here. Classics, perhaps to be replaced with being viewed through indigenous cultures or adapted to what is seen to be relevant and supportive of progressive, removing anything seeming to be Western civilization. Already there is the removing of the term Western civilization in the teaching texts, with a more general reference to the way we are. Since we have advance notice of classics being removed, what could we be doing? There's a sense of inevitability, as those who rule the education system will overrule obvious resistance. There was the unanswered question of whether it was a good idea to compromise and so water down the purpose of teaching classics, or simply refuse if it couldn't be taught properly. That bears thinking about too. Compromise has already been the preceding acquiescence before losing what little you have left. Indeed, the progressive educationalist crowd will not stop erasure of anything deemed outside their doctrine. Classics could be taught as what is behind theatre, literature, philosophy, government, medicine, et al., rather than these being the result of classical Greek influence. However, we already have the loud complaints of these areas being the outcome of Western civilization, and therefore racist. Maths is being accused of being racist, as is the concept of punctuality, so the dismantling process is clearly in motion now. I don't hold much hope for public education, including the universities, since they take their dictates from on high, who seem to take theirs from others on high. However, those who may be able to take preventative action shouldn't assume that they should just roll over and lose what we have. Perhaps there are ways to ensure important subjects such as classics continue to be taught. Perhaps it also needs the strong demands of the parents and students who demand a certain quality of education. You know, how to think and not what to think? It seems there is a general disdain, deliberately stoked in society, of the classics' uselessness and irrelevance to the modern world, and even the snob value, and goodness knows we don't want to encourage that. So how would one justify keeping classics in the university if challenged? In other words, what are the advantages of learning Greek history? Understanding the classics is to understand where science, medicine, literature, government, and theatre come from. Also, poetry, sport, democracy, and our language. Democracy is a Greek word. Most of our English language hails from Latin and Greek. It's one of the bases of our civilization. Conversely, what do we stand to lose as a society if classics disappear from our universities? It removes the opportunity to be exposed to another culture from where we can learn so much. We can assess and critique ancient Greece in a way we can't do with modern cultures. You can't offend the ancient Greeks because they're dead. The ancient Greeks had the same problems as we face nowadays, and they found ways to solve them. What problems can we relate to, and what were their solutions? What can we learn from them? These ancient cultures also fell to be replaced by other civilizations. What can we learn from that? Lose the link to the origins of our culture, and we risk losing those things we take for granted. Losing the knowledge of the original root meanings from our language would make us linguistically poorer. If we can be convinced science, medicine, literature, sport need to be reshaped because they're outdated or oppressive, we risk the replacement being worse. These things have been around for a couple of millennia and honed over the years. Remove that knowledge and the people won't know the value of proven history and why we do things a certain way. That should send chills down your spine. Knowing even basic classical literature, such as the Iliad, or understanding how the appeasement of the gods influenced excellence in sport, what someone's Achilles heel is, and what is a Trojan horse, and to say that this enriches our modern life is an understatement, and it needs an interview with a classics professor to explain it better than me. I'm working on that. She will explain it more deeply, why teaching classics is important, the what to teach, and how to gather resources for homeschoolers to excel in the classics. I'm scratching the surface here and relating this to the homeschooling life, which has the privilege of choosing what is in your child's curriculum. Once you know the importance of including the classics, you can include them in your studies with rigour and purpose. It's not an optional extra. It will deepen all aspects of your children's education. Not only are we producing smart and wise young adults, but also doing our Western civilization a favour by ensuring there will continue to be those who will not let our traditions, culture, and history die. You also have the privilege of what to leave out or to include less of. If I have to choose where to spend educational time, I will always choose the wisest information and topics and not necessarily the popular or those promoted by the educational authorities. Things I learned. 1. There was no second or third in their sports and Olympic Games. Neither were there participation prizes, just the pursuit of the best. 2. Toxic is a Greek word and comes from the arrows dipped in the venom of the Hydra killed by Hercules. You could say an early form of a biological weapon. 3. The red ribbon presented to an athlete winner was a skein of wool. The statue of the victorious athlete has his arms held up to tie the ribbon around his head. You can see the flat strip around his head where the ribbon was placed. There was also an amphora with the goddess Nike offering a victor's ribbon. As an avid knitter, always interested in anything historical to do with wool, it was my favourite exhibit. And number 4, the last thing I learned from the ancient Greeks exhibition was cheese was a luxurious commodity. I hope you have appreciated today's podcast. If you have found it helpful, please pass it around. And don't forget, please visit our website, cominghomeinfo.com. You can contact me through there if you would like to book a consultation, and we have a lot of resources. I'll catch up with you next week. Bye.